Good morning and welcome to the 2021 annual meeting of the Lawrence Partnership. We have a terrific morning for you filled with what makes the partnership unique, effective, and innovative. Even and especially in 2020, we invested in our people as our community's greatest asset. We continued our commitment to collaboration built on trust and recognition of shared interest. We focused our response to COVID from small business support to systems change. We leveraged more voices to the table and opened more pathways towards prosperity. Today, we will honor Julia Silverio with the David Tebbets Economic Impact Award, Mayor Rivera's 7 years of optimistic and impactful leadership, and 3 Lawrence Rising Stars. We welcome Harvard Business School professor Rawi Abdelal to discuss the challenges and opportunities to build a post-pandemic economic system that focuses on growth, justice, and equity. First, taking the chair's prerogative, a few thoughts. It has been an honor to chair the Lawrence Partnership for the last 2 years, to work with our talented and dedicated staff, to set the agenda for an innovative cross-sectoral partnership, and to work with an amazing group of leaders, each committed to making Lawrence a thriving, educated, healthy, prosperous, and equitable city. Among my takeaways is to include people in the conversation because that's the way we shape the best path forward. I learned that while each person around the table has expertise in their field, they also have wisdom to share about management, innovation, mentorship, and strategy. Each person wants to connect to opportunities larger than themselves or their business. During these past 2 years, which have been filled with so much struggle, challenge, and questioning, I saw our leadership dive deeper and be rewarded by progress on intractable problems and creation of robust networks across the city. I'd like to particularly thank our outgoing executive committee and officers, including our vice chair, Chet Zybek, our past chair, Lane Glenn, treasurer, Heather McMahon, clerk, Wendy Estrella, and members Jess Andors, Karen Andreas, Socrates Dela Cruz, Jonathan Isaacson, Gary Seidel, and John Silva. Leadership transition in an organization is a sign of strength, and I couldn't be happier that Wendy Estrella has been unanimously elected as our next board chair. Wendy was an early member of the partnership, Lawrence Leeds graduate, a lawyer, real estate developer, entrepreneur, radio host, mentor, and local booster. Her business acumen and life experience will bring a new direction to our collective work at the partnership, and I'm eager to continue working with her. We'll be hearing from Wendy soon in the program. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope you will continue to engage with the work of the Lawrence Partnership. And now I'd like to hand the virtual gavel to our new vice chair, Socrates Dela Cruz.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Marianne. It's a pleasure to be here. As Marianne said, my name is Socrates Dela Cruz, and I am the vice chair of the Lawrence Partnership. And I've been given the distinct pleasure of introducing a tribute video to my good friend, childhood friend, our beloved mayor, Danny Rivera. But I do want to highlight, in order to introduce the video, some of the impact that Danny and his team and the civic leadership working with Danny have been able to accomplish in the last 7 or 8 years. Because if you leave it up to Danny, he will never tell you what he did. He will always give the credit to someone else, which I think is an amazing sign of who he is. So what are some of the things that Danny did? It says that in order for a man to move a mountain, he must carry away the small stones first, one small stone at a time. Lawrence has moved from a state financial oversight board and budget deficits to budget surpluses with $19 million in cash reserve and a return to local control under the administration of Danny Rivera and his team. Lawrence has also been experiencing its lowest unemployment rate in a generation prior to COVID. The high school dropout rate in Lawrence was cut in half, while the graduation rate climbed 20%. Danny and his team piloted a free transportation bus campaign, which was implemented, and I'm proud to say, has turned into a national model. Lawrence, Mass. Is also the first in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the only minority-majority police department, with crime rates at a 20-year low, 46% drop in just the last 2 years. Danny and his team also oversaw residential and commercial development, totaling a whopping 1.5 million square feet worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Danny and his team also oversaw the creation of 2,400 units, both affordable and market rate housing. With grace and grit, Danny and his team led us through the Columbia gas disaster and the COVID-19 pandemic. So based on those small stones being moved, the mountainous challenges that Lawrence has faced has been able to little by little, we've been able to cut into it. And so we thank you, Danny. We thank your team. We thank all of the Lawrence leaders. And also, we want to say as the Lawrence Partnership, we are still committed to work with the leadership that's coming in to continue to move and face any mountainous challenges that may present themselves. So without further ado, I present to you this wonderful tribute video from my good friend, our mayor, Danny Rivera.
Mayor Rivera, Dan, thank you. Thank you for your love of Lawrence. Thank you for being this magnificent city's staunchest defender, its busiest builder, its loudest cheerleader, and its proudest kid. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for following, for serving, for demonstrating that it doesn't matter who gets the credit as long as the important work gets done. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being the good Boy Scout you've always been, and for leaving the woodpile higher than you found it.
As a Lawrence kid, grew up here, went to the public schools here, just like he did, and being the director now in a leadership role in local government is a big deal for somebody like me. And I have, he's one of the people I definitely thank for that opportunity because I do believe that he believed in me.
Dan Rivera and I have been friends for over 30 years. We went to high school together. One of the things that I am most proud of in terms of our friendship and who he is the fact that he never forgot that he was a Lawrence kid and that he made that top priority for everything that he was doing. Changing the image of the city after the City of the Damned article was his top priority, bringing in economic development, bringing relief to our families. And over the past 2.5 years, he has had to do that under some really amazing circumstances. The gas explosions of 2018 really put a huge strain on our community that was already so strained, and he still, no matter what, made sure he was up front and center, letting the governor know what was happening here in Lawrence, really being a champion for the city of Lawrence.
In terms of the police department, we've come a long way. I'm proud to say that we are the only majority police department now in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And that was a big push by Dan, wanting to make that happen. He felt that it was important, like we all do, to have our department be reflective of the community. So he worked hard at, trying to recruit minority men and women to take the test, get them through the academy, give them what they need, the support they need to be successful in the academy, graduate, and then join the ranks of the police department. So very quickly, that transformation happened here.
I expected Danny to become my big man in basketball. He just never quite made it. He wasn't a very good basketball player, to be honest with you. He shot, but he couldn't play very well. I think the thing about Danny that impresses me most is that he was always at his best when his best was needed. And I think that happened starting when he took over the role as mayor in Lawrence. He took all the leadership ability that he had from when he started off as a kid and just took that and has used it in every event that he's had to go through.
He's an incredible role model and right out of the stadium projects, and Lawrence is a special place, and we all know that, and he keeps that place in his heart, and we wish him the best of luck going forward on the state level. We know he'll do a fantastic job there, and as he has been an amazing leader through tough times and good times in Lawrence.
It's amazing how in history sometimes there's a perfect match of person and situation, and in Lawrence's case, this was a perfect match. Your vision for what this city could be, your tenacity, your passion for everything Lawrence, because you're a Lawrence kid, your determination to succeed where others say that you just couldn't do it, and I must admit your stubbornness, because at times it takes a very stubborn person to be able to lead the transition that you did.
First off, greetings from Boston, Dan. I want to also take this opportunity to let everyone know what a great partner you've been in our Viva Lawrence campaign. From joining El Mundo at Fenway Park, honoring Academic All-Stars 6 straight seasons, to being such a good sport at our annual Hispanic Heritage Breakfast, where you graciously allowed me to roast you. Our mutual goal was always to highlight the many positive stories that come from Lawrence, and you have certainly been the city's greatest ambassador.
Danny is a leader who works hard and who has a good heart. He puts working families in Lawrence first, and he fights for them day in and day out. His leadership makes our community and our Commonwealth stronger. Danny, congratulations on your move to mass development. I look forward to continuing our work together. It is an honor to fight alongside you.
Thanks so much, Sock. You know, to be recognized by a fellow project kid from Lawrence is the highlight of this award. And just so you know, every day that we went to work in City Hall, we wanted to make the Lawrence kids proud that we were doing the work we were doing. And for me, it's always been about the work, the group of us that went in there to City Hall to try to do the best we could. And the support we got in this community was through the roof. And all of the successes were as a group, a success that we did together, as a community that we did together. Most of the mistakes were mine, but our successes were ours together, and I'm just glad to have been a part of it. Thank you, and thank you to the partnership and the leadership of the partnership. Every day, the work you do makes Lawrence better. It is an honor to be here, to be recognized by you. The things that happen in this community can happen unless we have a pipeline of local people who are invested, local leadership that are coming up to make the city better. And it's my privilege to help the Lawrence Partnership honor the rising stars of this community. First and foremost, Eddie Rosa, a person who used to work for the city, a person who for real has done a huge difference in our environment, an important part of Groundwork Lawrence, and a member of our Conservation Commission. Eddie and his family have always had an important role to play in our community, and we're so happy that he can be recognized by the partnership. He is really, truly a rising star. As always, most of the progress that happens in this community has happened because we have strong women leadership, and the next awardee for the Rising Star awardee is no different. If you know Joanna, you know that she's always hustling. She's always got a positive word for our youth and a direction for upward mobility for them. I met her on a political campaign, and she helped an incumbent state representative win his seat. She's awesome. We love her. And the work that she does every day makes us proud here in the city of Lawrence. And I want to say she's a rising star, but I'm pretty sure that she's already in the constellation. So we're excited to help the Lawrence Partnership honor Joanna De Pena as a rising star. An activist in Eddie Rosa, a woman leader in Joanna De Pena, who's working with our youth. And of course, the other thing that makes Lawrence run is our entrepreneurs. Immigrant entrepreneurs are the backbone of Lawrence's economy. And so Jorge Veloz is a rising star because of his entrepreneurial spirit. He helped us during COVID-19. He's helped the city during the gas crisis. And he is the epitome of entrepreneurship, always finding a way to pivot his business to help the community. And so we're very proud and very excited to also say Jorge Veloz as a rising star.
Good morning. I am Wendy Estrella, and I am your new chairperson of the Lawrence Partnership. Just want to thank Marianne for all that she's done for the Lawrence Partnership and all the people of Lawrence. I know that I have big shoes to fill. I'm proud to be the new chair of the Lawrence Partnership. This is an organization I believe in deeply because the organization brings people together to help others and create solutions to very real challenges. Together, we can continue to do that important work. People ask, why am I so passionate about Lawrence? But it's simple. My husband and I are examples of what a community like ours can make possible. This is the place where dreams are started and realized. And as a young girl whose family immigrated from the Dominican Republic, this community welcomed us. And as a young professional, I was mentored and supported by so many people, some in this meeting. As I grew my business, I was embraced by partners and collaborations along the way. I've benefited from the incredible local institutions and resources. Like so many who grew up here, I found success. My bond to Lawrence is unbreakable because opportunity and the sense of community are so prevalent. I believe deeply that it is our duty to continue to foster that sense of opportunity by each us giving back, solving some very real problems and showing the path forward. I am so thrilled to be stepping into this role as our city enters a new phase. I've never been more confident in our community's resilience and innovation, and I'm committed to work to ensure that Lawrence of tomorrow built on this strength. I envision a Lawrence that continues to start more small businesses than any other community our size, one that creates opportunities for our youth to build connections and the credentials that they need to build meaningful careers. I'm excited for the initiative that the Lawrence Partnership will be sustaining and launching this spring, which will help realize these visions. And the revolving test kitchen expands, it will be more double its footprint and transition into a shared commercial kitchen. At the same time, the current Lawrence Leads cohort is now starting to recruit the third cohort of leaders to participate in this impactful program with faculty and staff from Harvard Business School. These initiatives and the countless others that the partnership anchors and catalyzes, it contributes to create opportunities for growth, which is the heart of the partnership's mission. It is not simple economic development, my friends. It's building relationships that eventually build wealth. I know firsthand because I've benefited from programs like the Lawrence Leads and BEI. I have friends and colleagues that have benefited from the venture loan fund and countless businesses and entrepreneurs that have heavily leaned on these programs. And like many of you, I want to be on the table to ensure that we continue to answer the call. I want the Lawrence Partnership to leave no doubt, to be embedded in the community. There must be intentional engagement for all to have equal access to opportunities and to be a part of the solutions we are creating. I know that we're ready to do that. So again, thank you, and I'm super excited to embark on this journey together. But now it is also my pleasure and my honor to introduce to you the David Tibbetts Award. And as you know, David Tibbetts has represented the ideals of this award, leaders who have successfully promoted and implemented innovative economic development strategies. And I can't think of a more deserving winner than this woman. She's not only an icon in Lawrence among the community, but among a civic and business leader in the Merrimack Valley. She's also a mentor and a friend, someone who paved the way for many, many Latinas like myself in this community. She taught so many of us in the community what it means to do well and do good. She has been incredibly successful in growing Silverio Insurance. She's also been committed to helping others find similar business success. She's also shown us to do it all, build a business, serve the community, and maintain this incredible family that she has. She's an exceptional mother whose children are proven record of her motherhood. Her marriage to my friend Jose Dario is an institution that exemplifies unity, love, and respect. Congratulations to my mentor, my friend, and the David Tibbetts Award winner, Julia Silverio.
My biggest legacy, I think, is a legacy of hard work and determination. And out of everything, what I'd like to leave people to remember is that persistence, determination, and dedication pays off. It might take time, it might be slow, but it pays off.
You know, something that I've just always valued and loved about Julia is that, you know, she has both the practical knowledge and the incredible like smarts and savvy and great instincts and gives awesome advice and really sees situations clearly and understands how relationships work. But she also has that, you know, nurturing side and that incredible desire to do the best by the community and to serve.
She brings to the table in our community a sense of protection. So people will come and say, I need to talk to Julia, can you give me the number? And sometimes people don't want to hear what she has to say because she has a very clear picture. But at the end of the day, Julia is open-minded.
I'm a friend of both Julia and David, and they share a lot of attributes in common. First of all, they're both very funny. They both have a great sense of humor, and they're both very smart, and they both work extremely hard. But the greatest attribute they share is a fierce, and that's the word I want to use, a fierce loyalty for the city of Lawrence and for all of its citizens.
People have asked me about like my experiences in Lawrence, and I always have very positive stories to tell. It was because my experience growing up was positive here. Every aspect of our life was lived here. We never saw this, our experience of living here as something negative. It was so enjoyable. We were so ingrained in the community because that was Mommy's life. And so if it was her life, it became, you know, part of our life.
It wasn't until I grew up that I realized that not everybody has that that sense of responsibility to take care of their community, which was instilled with us, you know, by Mom early. But we carry that with us. I know you do, I know I do, that we have a responsibility, and it's always, you know, it's a saying, you know, you leave it, you know, better than the condition that you got it in, and that's what we're trying to do, because we're just following the influence of Mom and Dad.
I want to thank all the members of the Lawrence Partnership for thinking of me. This is a humbling experience. Just like any other award, whenever you're recognized for something that you've done naturally, it takes a lot of from you, because you then start thinking back and saying, why did I do this? I didn't do it to get recognized. I did it because I wanted to do better and to show that we can all do better. But as humbling as it is, I think it's also compromising, because the more you get recognized in a community, the more you have to provide for that community. I am humbled. I'm proud of receiving this, and I also want to make sure that if this recognition, it's for me, I want the younger generation of Latinos to take advantage and say, sí se puede.
Good morning, everybody. I have to say, watching those videos is why you can see why Lawrence is such a special city. It's now my very great pleasure to introduce my friend, Professor Rawi Abdallal. In his day job, Rawi Abdallal is the Herbert F. Johnson Professor of International Management at Harvard Business School. And he also, equally importantly, he's the faculty co-chair of the Bloomberg Harvard City Leadership Initiative. When we were planning this event, I called my friend Rawi and asked him who would be good as a speaker, and he generously volunteered his own time for this. The issues that he is going to discuss today, issues of equity, are critically important to the city. And we are very grateful that he's willing to come here and share his time, his knowledge, his expertise with us. So without further ado, I introduce Professor Rawi Abdallal of the Harvard Business School.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. It is a real pleasure for me to be part of your annual meeting. I feel deeply proud to have the chance to connect with you and to celebrate a lot of the important work the Lawrence Partnership has been doing these many years. And I suppose my role in today's meeting is to put some of the work that the partnership has been doing in its broader context, which I think heightens the sense of challenge that we might have, but also emphasizes in some really profound ways just how important the work is and how the directions that the Lawrence Partnership has expended its energy and relationships and ideas and creativity are, in my view, almost certainly the correct ones. But when we see them in this broader context, I think the urgency of creative, thoughtful action right now, especially as we are moving away, we think, I hope, from this era of pandemic into some new moment. And overall, the argument that I'd like to make to you, the suggestion that I have is there are so many ways in which the national economy that we had in the United States before this era of pandemic was failing too many Americans. And as much as we think to ourselves that we are eager to go back to some of the things that we were doing before the pandemic struck, when we think about how our economies work, how our local communities work, we definitely don't want to go back to what we had before. What we need to do is to reimagine in some really profound ways what the American dream is, and to restore some of the key principles of the American dream. So I'm not sure if you all know this. I'm grateful that we have so many people watching on the YouTube stream. I can see your comments, and which are lovely. The program has been so wonderful so far. And so as I'm sharing a few thoughts with you, please do not hesitate to share reactions or ideas with me in the chat, or just with each other, just to share some ideas. What I really hope is that this conversation will stimulate some further conversations and some further creativity. So, reimagining American dreams. Let us put the Lawrence Partnership in its broader national context. So this is a chart that I wanted to share with you. And I know that it's a bit busy. And by the way, I've shared these slides and these data with our friends at the partnership. And so if you want access to this, please reach out and we will get these to you. There's no copyright or anything. I hope that if you feel like it, you'll give this little lecture to all of your friends and family and share these ideas. These are the conversations I think we should be having. There's one little finding, one little idea that I would like for you to get out of this chart. So this is a collection of data in the United States going back to 1910 that describes how unequal the distribution of income is in the United States. So if we read from the bottom right going up, let me just tell you what I see. So in the United States, more or less today, this is from a couple of years ago, the top 0.01% of income earners in the United States earned 5% of national income. That's the top 0.01%. The top 1% of income earners earned more than 20% of national income. The top 5% earned 38.5% of national income, and the top 10% of income earners in the United States earned almost 50% of all of national income. That is a lot of income inequality. But if we look at the chart in the blue in the lower left-hand corner, what we can see is the ebb and flow of income inequality in the United States. And if we look back about 30 years ago, and for the 40 years before that, the United States was a lot more equal than it became in the past 25 years. So today, the top 1% earns about 50% of national income. Today, the top the top 10% earns about 50% of national income. The top 1% earns 22% of national income. But not very long ago, this is not ancient history. This is in the 40s and the 50s and 60s and 70s. Those numbers were much lower. The top 10% earned about a third of national income rather than 50%. The top 1% earned about 8.9% of national income rather than 22. So not very long ago, we lived in a country that was much more equal than it is today. And if we go back further in time, we can see that the last time the United States was as unequal as it is today was in the late 1920s, in 1929. And that was a time of booming equity markets disconnected from the real economy. It was a time of deep frustration with the establishment and the political and business elites, a time of discontent. And I think that our time of discontent with how the system works very much resembles this other moment in American history in the late 1920s when we were so unequal. Another element of our story is if we think about what are the two key elements of what the American dream narrative is supposed to be. And I grew up with this story too. I'm an immigrant to this country. I came to this country when I was 4 years old, having been born abroad. And what I always thought the American dream was supposed to be were two ideas. One, that every generation did better than the last. And this is just a chart that shows that that's not true anymore. 30 years ago, most Americans could expect to earn more than their parents. By the time we get to the middle of the 2010s, the percent of Americans who ended up earning more than their parents fell to 50%. And actually, in more recent years, it's below 50%. So today, the average American should expect to earn less than his or her parents. Another key part of this American dream narrative, and to simplify it, what I always thought it was supposed to be was more or less doesn't matter who your daddy is. It's a very individualist story that if you're born into any circumstance, you should be able through merit and hard work to deliver some American dream story for you and your family. And what that requires is that the household into which you are born should not determine your fate. It should be, in this American dream story, a matter of what you yourself do, what your household does, what your community does. This is a chart that's a very complicated statistical analysis, but the essence of it is this. It is a way to describe the correlation between parents' income and children's income. And so in our story of the American dream, the correlation between parental income and children's income in the United States should be very low because it's an individualist story. And the way to read this chart is that at one extreme, there's Peru, for example, with a very high correlation between parental income and children's income. The other extreme of this chart, there's Denmark with a very low correlation between parental income and children's income. So simply, if you're a Peruvian boy and your Peruvian daddy is rich, and this is father to son correlation so that we control for the gender gap in wages. If you're a Peruvian boy and your Peruvian daddy makes a lot of money, you're going to make a lot of money. And if you're a Danish boy and your Danish daddy makes a lot of money, it's got more or less nothing to do with whether you earn a high income. In our imagination, the United States should be down below Denmark, but it's not. We can find it on this chart. It's next to Switzerland and Argentina and Pakistan, with in fact a very high correlation between parents' income and children's income. And what that means is that we have a mythology of class mobility that is not reflected in the underlying reality of today. In fact, we have very limited intergenerational economic mobility. And so unless we think that only rich people have clever, smart, hardworking children who then go on to earn relatively high incomes, which we know is not true, then this is simply not fair. In the United States, we send probably too many kids to college. Compared to other rich countries, we send more kids to college than almost any other rich country. And that's because we've been delivering another myth, which is that the only path to a middle-class life runs through college. And when you get there, you should study whatever you want and take on as much debt as is necessary in order to make your way into the middle class. But these other countries that send fewer of their kids to college have very robust middle class systems. In fact, much more robust than the United States does today. And so this requires us to wonder, is there something we should be learning from these other countries that have so many different paths to the middle class and not just the mythological path that we have in the United States, which is, I think, increasingly mythological, and the crisis over student loan debt is part of that challenge. We're not doing this the right way, and we haven't been for a while. Amy, I couldn't agree more, and Joanne as well. This is exactly the sort of rethinking we need to do in recasting this narrative. We think in the United States that we are a country full of small firms and entrepreneurs. But this chart shows us that compared to other rich countries, mostly people are employed by large enterprises. Whereas other rich countries have much more employment in small and medium-sized enterprises than we do in the United States. So we are sending too many kids to college. We're not training them well enough for the jobs that will actually exist. And we're clearly not supporting small firms and their crucial role in generated employment, as well as some of the other countries that are about as rich as we are doing. And then the pandemic has created so many more challenges. And Max, these are great points. And let me come to those in just a moment. And we won't have time to sort it all out, but I do have a few ideas about what we're lacking. It's not just about information. I think it's about practices and institutions as well. And this is, I think, exactly where the Lawrence Partnership comes in. So the pandemic took an already troubled system and made it worse. Every inequality we had before the pandemic was magnified. Racial inequality, gender inequality, income inequality, wealth inequality. Everything that was problematic before was made more problematic. And just a few pieces of data to highlight. So this shows simply that the ability to work remotely, to work from home, is very highly correlated with income, which is to say, the higher the income you earn, the more likely you can stay home in quarantine in the middle of a pandemic and still earn money. And the lower income you earn, the less likely you are able to stay home, keep your family safe, follow guidelines for quarantine, and then continue to earn money. So quarantine is a luxury that most people cannot afford. And the percent of jobs that can be done remotely in the United States today is 44%. So that means more than half of all of the jobs that exist simply cannot be done remotely right now. And so the already troubled income situation was magnified by the public health policies, which I'm not criticizing the public health policies. Probably they were necessary to flatten the curve and all of that. But what we can't do is tell everybody to stay home and then not do anything else to make sure that they can continue to earn an income. We've had some of the public health parts right, but without the underlying structures that would allow people to continue to earn income. And Radames, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right, but yes, indeed, the wealth inequality is vastly bigger than the income inequality. It's such a great point. If we look at like raw concentration of wealth, the numbers are, I think, even more alarming. but also much harder for us to fix at the local level. Whereas I think we can do a lot at the local level. This shows the recovery of employment by the quartile of the income distribution in the United States since the pandemic began. And just the obvious thing to highlight here is that high wage employment is already back to where it was before the pandemic struck. But middle wage employment is still 8 or 9% off of what it was before the pandemic, and low wage employment continues basically to be a bloodbath. Low wage employment is still 20% below what it was before the pandemic struck. So we have begun the economic recovery, but it's been extremely uneven across the income scale. So this is not good enough. And then you all know this, and for those of you who have children and know friends and colleagues who have children, like we all know this, but McKinsey, the consulting company, did a study on remote instruction for K through 12 students. They did this last summer just to get a sense of what had been going on. And they broke, in a variety of ways, broke down the quality of the remote instruction that children were getting in K through 12. The green is average and above average remote instruction. The purple is low quality remote instruction. 20% is no instruction. Basically kids who dropped out of the educational system. They weren't going to class online. They were essentially receiving no instruction. So overall, we see that most kids in the United States either received low quality remote instruction during the pandemic or no instruction at all. But then if we break it down by race and income, and it won't surprise anybody, it's not only horrifying, it's tragic, actually. This set of chart has brought me to tears more than once, and I've only talked about it twice. So every time I talk about it, it is heartbreaking. So look at Black students and Hispanic students. 40% of Black students in the United States have had no instruction during the pandemic. 30% of Hispanic students have had no instruction, and the instruction that they have gotten, absolutely, Max. The support at home is one part of this, and broadband access and device access and all of these things factor into it. And then just by income, right? Low income students have, none of them essentially has received average or above average remote instruction. 60% low quality, 40% no instruction. We need to start now resolving the challenges that will have come from this moment, so that this doesn't become a generational crisis, that these kids don't live the rest of their lives having been stuck behind. And Heather, absolutely, this digital divide is another way we are limiting opportunity. So where does that leave us? There's a lot of work to do, and it's more urgent than ever. And we had this work to do before. One thing we have to do is recognize the structural facts. Like, we can't fix the entire national economy from Lawrence, but there is so much we can do at the local level. And Jonathan mentioned this city leadership initiative in which I have been involved for the past 5 years. And the deep abiding belief that we have is that at the local level, that's where the rubber meets the road. At the local level, that's where we can create very profound change, and quickly, and in partnership between city leaders, public sector leaders, private sector leaders. So we have to recognize the structural facts. And part of the story that I wanted to share with you is just how dire things had gotten at the national level, how much they had been transformed over the past 25 years, and then, in fact, over the past couple of years. So we recognize the structural facts, but we also can see the opportunities for influence at the local level. We need to prioritize decoupling parents' and children's incomes. That is one of our most important agendas. we need to rethink educational trajectories and rethink this emphasis on only college, and focus a lot more on skills-based training, and not just for high school students, but over the course of people's lives. And supporting small firms. Now, I know a bit about the agendas that the Lawrence Partnership has undertaken. And there's so much of the work that needs doing at the local level that many communities have not been undertaking, but that the Lawrence Partnership has begun to try to wrestle with and has made some extraordinary progress. Mentoring of students seems to me one of the key priorities. When we talk about the digital divide, when we talk about the low-income students that have been unable to get access to the education that they need, part of our responsibility is actually for us to track down these students, individual student by individual student, and to serve as much as we can as mentors to them. To mentor potential entrepreneurs, to support cooperative education in the educational system. So many of you are sure familiar with this. I graduated from Georgia Tech in Atlanta, and most of my friends did the co-op program. So 1 semester of class, 1 semester of work, 1 semester of class, 1 semester of work. There have been experiments in parts of the country. I know that some people in the Lawrence Partnership are thinking about it, but this is a thing we can do for high school students too, so that our high school students aren't just getting skills outside of school, but they're getting these skills within the context of school as well. Local finance for local firms, and especially small local firms and new local firms. It's not going to be the big national banks that support small firms in Lawrence, but the financial firms in Lawrence have begun over these past years as part of the partnership, I understand, to begin to find ways to use local finance for local firms. So think about lifelong learning for everyone, that these are opportunities that we have to create, not just for the young, but for everyone as they go through their careers and their trajectories. And a shout out indeed to a few things coming through the local banks, but just some things about which I know. The Venture Loan Fund, the Small Business Connector, the Poder Leadership Institute, various workforce development opportunities, Lawrence Leads. These are all going in the right direction. And I'm excited about these initiatives. What I would like to say is that we've got to keep up this work and also recognize that it's in this broader national context. And I wonder if one way to think about the organization of this work is to target specifically the things that we can see that are broken. And for me, those are especially access to skills training, access to education, and if we put it in the broadest possible sense, to make sure that parents' incomes and children's incomes are not too highly correlated, to break that correlation, to ensure that everybody has the fair chance that they deserve. So I will conclude with a little quote from the theologian Reinhold Niebuhr. Eventually, this became called the Serenity Prayer, and it's evolved over time, and I'm sure some of you have heard versions of this, but this is the original. Father, give us courage to change what must be altered, serenity to accept what cannot be helped, and the insight to know the one from the other. And for me, the work of the partnership is exactly that, to recognize some of the structural facts that are national structural facts, but also to have the courage and wisdom and insight and creativity and passion to locate the things that we know we can change, and they can only be changed at the local level. So again, I'm very proud to have had the chance to spend a little bit of time with you today for your annual meeting. I'm grateful to Jonathan for inviting me to join. I'm thrilled that I can connect my name to the Lawrence Partnership in some way on the internet, because I'm really proud of the work that you're doing. And this work is more important now, perhaps, than it ever has been. When we think about the fact that the pandemic created for us a leadership challenge that during the pandemic, many of us thought might be the greatest leadership challenge of our lives. And as we see this uneven recovery unfolding, what's clear to me is that the greatest leadership challenge of our lives is still ahead of us as the pandemic ends. And as we must do the work to rebuild our communities more equitably, more inclusively, and more justly. So thank you for sharing your time with me today. And I believe Derek will be offering some concluding thoughts.
Thank you, Rawi. On so many levels, that was a sobering but also inspiring presentation. We covered a lot of ground in the last hour. Everything from the inspiration from so many of our leaders to the tragic data points that Rawi talked about. But at the end of the day, I hope we left you with a resonant feeling and an urgency to act. With Rawi's comments and those that preceded him, we hope that you continue to think globally and yet act locally. Want to be super respectful of everybody's time. We want to get everybody out of here by 11. But I think it's important to echo what we heard today. The people that we honored, the stars both established and rising, they're really great representations of our community, what makes it so special. We're proud to recognize them and also grateful for Congresswoman Trahan's delivery of congressional certificates to these leaders. But there's so many more leaders out there waiting to be connected, eager to emerge, aspiring to make positive impact. It's our work and our promise to help them do that. We heard from our outgoing chair, who candidly I have been so inspired and motivated by. I've been grounded by Marianne's grace over the last couple of years to work closely with her, as I know so many have in her decades of service to this community. Marianne, thank you. I'll say it every time I see you, but thank you for who you are and what you've given. But we also had a chance to hear from our newest chair and vice chair, and boy, are we lucky to have Sak and Wendy at this moment in our community, in the space where this organization is, and we are growing in Lawrence. Sak and Wendy, thank you guys for offering to serve. Thank you for the experiences and expertise and perspective that you give to this work. I am grateful to be working alongside of you. Lawrence and cities like Lawrence are again facing incredible challenges as we emerge from a pandemic that has disproportionately impacted Black and Brown communities. Economic downturn that has continued to highlight racial and social inequities and the struggle of creating a more just society. Professor Abdullah gave us good perspective on this issue, but also offered some compelling opportunities to act. And most importantly, I think he gave us a charge to reimagine the economy of the future. I take that very seriously, both personally and in this work at the partnership. I think that it's not only the right thing to do, but a more effective way to create broad-based prosperity. I hope you'll join us in that call to action. And I also hope that you share our optimism that despite these structural challenges, we think that our community is well positioned to leverage the collaborative infrastructure we have to support a recovery that's both robust and more inclusive, more resilient, and offers more shared prosperity. We continue to be built on the values that we were founded with, which is an investment in our people as our community's greatest assets. Commitment to collaboration built on trust, recognition of shared interest, and a celebration of diversity as a strategic approach to leverage as a competitive advantage. We think there's a lot of work ahead of us, but we also think that we're starting from a strong foundation. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you in advance for continuing to join us move forward. Thank you for continuing to invest in our community, our people, and our future. Have a great day, everybody.